Almost 2 years ago, I made a video talking about recessions and how they work. Since then, a lot has happened around the world, and the likelihood of some nations experiencing a recession within the coming years has increased on the daily. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Reece, and in today's video, I am going to be talking about what the actual concern is surrounding recessions, how they disadvantage people, and who they benefit. And hopefully, along the way, you learn a thing or two that might help you combat the hardships that a recession can impose on an individual's life. Firstly, let's start with a quick recap of what a recession actually is, where a recession is a period of time where an economy contracts rather than expands. And the way an economy's growth is measured is through its GDP, where value is generated by goods and services being produced by a particular country. And based on the technical definition, a country is in a recession when they see 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP. Now, the way a recession might occur in the world's current situation is due to the rising cost of living, putting pressure on everyday people caused by the flow-on effects of inflation. As people spend less to save money, businesses will look to cut costs where they can, and that will take a toll on the productivity of economic output. And this more or less is the actual goal that governments want to achieve during high inflation periods. They want people to be spending less to reduce demand, and this should also theoretically slow the rate that goods and services inflate in price. Now, with context out of the way, does this mean that you should be concerned? Does it mean that you're going to be struggling to make ends meet, or worse? I'll say it like this: recessions are tricky because they affect everyone differently, and they affect people differently at different periods throughout their lifetime, throughout the span of that recession. In the early stages, after we see the economy slow down, we will start to see people being laid off. This can be really detrimental for some professions because we can see them very quickly become saturated with the availability of workers who have just been laid off, plus people finishing their studies and the existing workforce slowing down, drying up, not hiring as many new people. And this can then have the flow-on effects of things like wage growth kind of stagnating because of the oversupply of people looking for these jobs. And at times where desperation really is high because there's not a lot of jobs, but there is a big supply of those types of workers, people generally will accept whatever they can get for work, giving businesses the upper hand to hire people at, let's just say, roughly the same, if not lower wages than what they're currently earning, because people are going to accept those jobs out of desperation. And like I mentioned, this is also going to be particularly bad for students who are now completing their studies, because they're going to be entering a workforce and competing against more experienced workers who again might have an edge in those scenarios where there is a bit of desperation going on. Businesses are probably going to take the more experienced workers over someone who doesn't have that industrial experience. This can be detrimental, again, not allowing these people who have completed their studies to enter the workforce and actually provide for themselves, plus gain valuable experience in the industry to then kick off their career. Another concern for many would be credit tightening. People seem to think that a housing crash would be great. They seem to think that it would give them the opportunity to enter the market at a discounted rate, or even give them the opportunity to enter the market at a rate they can afford. However, the reality of it is, as long as there is demand and cashed up buyers, the prices of homes realistically aren't going to crash all that much. Additionally, since our last recession, banks have introduced measures such as the serviceability buffer test to provide more confidence to a bank that people will be able to make repayments on the debt that they're taking on. To learn more about that, feel free to watch this video right here. I've linked it down in the description below, and it is an important topic to understand, especially if you are someone who is planning to borrow money within Australia for the purchase of the house in the coming years. And now would be a really good opportunity for you to quickly hit that like and subscribe button down below. It really goes a long way for the channel. I really do appreciate the support, and it does not go unnoticed. So thank you for taking the time out of your day to do that. Anyway, during recessions, banks want to make the criteria to borrow money less strict. However, as we are currently experiencing high levels of inflation worldwide, our central banks are having to raise interest rates, and those interest rates are being passed on to the customers, making it harder for people to borrow money. People who already have a loan have to pay a little bit more as part of their repayments, which sucks, but overall they don't have too much to worry about as long as they can service their debts. It's the people that want to get a loan that really suffer. Their borrowing capacity significantly reduces, making it harder for them to offer competitively to secure a home. On the other hand, people who over-leveraged themselves and borrowed too much money, let's say for the purchase of property, can also really suffer from rate hikes as well. And if they default on their payments because it becomes too much, they can lose their homes. And this is something we actually saw happening back in the 2007-2008 global financial crisis. People were forced to sell their homes for less than what their loans were, leaving them without a roof over their head and a debt that they still needed to service. Long-term effects of recessions might see us experiencing economic scarring, where lower wages for longer periods of time will lead to lost opportunities. Less investment will be made into the progress of an individual's life. And because that money is being taken from that development, it will be going to their debts and their cost of living, which means that for people who are in the position to capitalize on others' misfortune, more money is going to feed into their pockets. And this is how we get a bigger and bigger class divide over time. It's where the argument of the middle class will slowly fade away into nothing, and there will only be lower class, basically people who are poor and can never get out of those dangerous cycles, and then upper class, people who are rich and have it pretty easy for the rest of their life because they always have the opportunity to make money off of other people's misfortune. Which kind of leads me into the talking point of who gains from recessions, because there is another side to this coin. During recessions, there are some who can really thrive off of this environment. There is a famous saying, and it's well known, and it goes, more millionaires are made during a recession than any other time. And there's a reason for that. During recessions, lots of people sell off their assets out of fear. I'm talking about things like their shares, cryptocurrency, and property, just to name a few, causing an oversupply of the availability of these assets, which drives the price of them down, giving an opportunity to those who are able to scoop them up for a price that is exponentially lower than what they might have had to pay any other day of the week, month, year, whenever that period of recession is occurring. Another collective which we see generally thrive during recessions and economic downturns are industries that need to operate no matter what. They generally keep their staff employed and generally continue the profit train rolling. Transport of goods and services doesn't stop. Healthcare doesn't stop. Defense doesn't stop. Utilities, they don't stop either, and the list goes on. If there is a need for a particular service, it will generally survive the hardships imposed by a recession. Now, like I said earlier, we are seeing higher inflation than normal, causing governments to have to take action to slow down economic growth. For asset holders, inflation can eat away your debt as long as you are able to continue servicing that debt through the rough patches. As a simple example, mine and my partner's combined income is roughly $200,000 a year, and we are currently servicing about $1 million of debt. If the value of the actual properties that we're servicing that debt on goes up, that's great because our equity goes up, but our debt doesn't grow at that same rate. And then if salaries eventually go up as well, even though they might lag for a period of time, that is also great because pressure might be put on industry to pay more to hire workers to get the job done. Again, that really works in our favor because it will allow us to tackle our debt faster. If our combined income goes up to $300,000 because of this shift, we will still be servicing that $1 million of debt, theoretically making it easier for us to pay off that loan as long as we make smart decisions with that adjustment in our salaries. Like I said, we would just need to weather the storm during those rough patches of a recession to make sure that we keep our jobs and we're able to service that debt. Now, I just wanted to make today's video to bring awareness to the topic. It's something that gets talked a lot about on the news, but there's not specifics that are involved in it. It's generally just high level stuff and no one ever really dives into the more deeper topics. I think it's really important for people to understand the concept of it, who it affects positively and negatively, just even as a high level overview, because having this understanding will allow you to plan and put things in place in the instance where stuff starts to get, pretty bleak. And hopefully the outcome of it is you become more equipped to be able to handle the hardships that they might impose on people. If you're clever, you might be able to capitalize on the markets that might perform really well during these downturns. On the flip side, again, you might be able to purchase stocks, property at a discounted price that potentially will get you ahead years down the line. That's how investing generally goes. Things over time should continue to grow. even through economic downturns, they should bounce back theoretically as things get back to normal. So again, if you're someone who sees an opportunity because you have an understanding of what's to come, you might be able to take that opportunity and actually profit from it, making your life in the end a little bit easier. Seeing a recession in the pipeline might also allow you to plan ahead, where, for example, if you could see your industry being one where you might lose your job because it's an industry that might really struggle to maintain a workforce, you might put a backup plan in place. You might start working on a side hustle. You might look for a second job. You might think about what industries you could transition into if you started to see this, let's use mass layoff occurring. You have the power to put a plan in place, and having an understanding of the topic is everything you should need to kickstart that process. Planning ahead really is going to give you the best opportunity to tackle any type of downturn, any type of situation that's going to affect your life detrimentally. Having the thought in the back of your mind will give you power when this starts to affect your life or people that you might know if we do eventually get there. Who knows what the future holds? And that is pretty much all I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Like I said earlier, if you did, please hit that like and subscribe button down below. I really do appreciate the support, and I will leave you there. Have a good day, have a good week, and as always, I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.